you started.
Media director at the Department of Environment. I'm acting director now until.
Ms. Huff, is Mr. Beal on the line?
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Okay, no, never called me.
Okay.
No.
And
You're doing a good job.
Ms. Bettis Carter is on the line?
No,
Okay.
yes, she is.
Yes, okay.
So,
Okay, I'd like to, board members, if we're ready, through to me, call to order the 912th meeting of the Board of Directors of Alexandria Sanitation Authority, now known as AlexRenew Enterprises. Take a moment, take a look at the agenda. Is there a motion to accept the agenda? So moved. Second?
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Anyone opposed? It's up. Do we have any members of the public here?
Yes. Mr. Randy Rockway.
Mr. Rockwith, we are glad to have you here. We don't get a lot of visitors, so this is special for us too. Because we are members of Alexandria, I'd like the board just to take a second to introduce ourselves. I'm John Hill. I live in the Rosemont part of Alexandria. And been on the board for about a decade now. So let's start right here.
I'm Adriana Caldarelli. I live in the West End and I've been on the board since early 2020.
I am Mark Jinks. I live in Clover College Park and I worked for the city prior to this for 20-some years.
I'm Becky Hammer. I'm the newest board member. I just joined in July and I live in Rosemont.
And on the line, we have from the sunny climates of somewhere else, Mr. Beal.
I'm Jim Beal. I live in Delray. I've been on the board about 7 years.
Now, Mr. Rockwith, I understand you have some questions about our rate setting process. So please, you have the floor. Take as long as you need.
Wherever the voice is. Oh, is the voice here?
No, you can stand right there. We can get it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so I'm obviously one of the senior people that lived in Alexandria since about 70, 71. And a lot of my neighbors are also my age. And if they had children, the kids have moved out. They're still living in their house. There's two people. Sometimes there's only one person now. And during the winter, we don't use much water because we try to be, conserve the water, So like my wife and I, we use like 2,000 gallons most months. Occasionally it goes higher, but usually it's pretty low. But we like to take care of our garden. And in the summer, we water. And so there's the thing where the winter average is based at 4,000 gallons because according to the website, it's that's the average of what everyone uses. But we're not average. We're old people living in a house. So I was thinking that instead of using the 4,000 gallon average for the lowest winter average, make it what people's winter average really is. So before the meeting, it was brought up that, well, there's some people they go away for the whole winter. There probably are, but most of the people, well, I know all my neighbors, they stay here. They might go away for a couple of weeks, but not much longer. So my suggestion is to reconsider about the winter average, making it either the 4,000 gallons or, for my benefit, and the other people who are just one or two people, making it what their real winter average is. Or maybe even make it what it is instead of for just 3 months, make it what it is for 6 months. Because it would still be much lower for those of us. So any questions?
Sure. When you water your garden and do other things in the summertime, do you go way over 4,000, do you think?
Occasionally. It's rare. It's like, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, we went to like 5,000 gallons. But that's because I try not to waste water. I hope it rains, but maybe it's not gonna rain as much anymore. I don't know. So it's kind of, it seems like the 4,000 gallons, it definitely benefits people with large families or a group home, which we have, several houses in our neighborhood have been rented out. So they have like 5, 6, some 7 people living in the house. So for them, 4,000 gallons would be great. They'd never use that little. But for most of us who've lived here for a long time, it's more than we use on a normal monthly basis.
Members of the board have any question for Mr. Rockwood? Say a word or?
Just would like to explain the winter average. I think the initial question that came in today, appreciate you sending the question in advance so we could, have a conversation and respond to you. But just also for the board's benefit and anybody else attending the meeting, the AlexRenew's charges are based on billed use, based on meter charges from Virginia American Water. We do recognize that not all water at a residence will be returned to the sewer, during summer months. So as a result, we set up what's called the winter average. So we currently take an average of billed flows from December through February each year. And we average that. And whichever is greater, that value, or 4,000, becomes the winter average. The little examples always help. So we have a customer with a winter average of 3,000 gallons per month, much like yourself, using 3,900 gallons during a month outside that time frame. In the summer month or warmer month, would be billed 3,900 gallons for their actual usage. In that same customer using 3,000 for their winter average uses 5,000 in a summer month, they would be capped at the 4,000 winter average. The greater, the greater of that, the less of that usage. So the reason the 4,000 gallon cap exists, this was established back in between 2012, 2014, when the winter average was initially established at AlexRenew. There is a portion of Alexandria that does not live here during the months of December through January, where we're setting the winter average. And in order to come up with a value at the time, an estimate was prepared of a household of 2.1 multiplied by 60 gallons per day, which is a standard usage for average customers, multiplied by 30.4, and that gives you around 3,900 gallons per month, rounded up to 4,000 gallons. That's how that value was initially established. Sorry, I'll do it again.
I was a little slow. So you said an average of 2.1 people per.
So yeah, what happened when
How much do they use?
the 60 gallons per minute was the
60.
60 gallons per day. I'm sorry, not per minute. That'd be 60 gallons per day.
Yeah.
Times 30.4, which is an average month,
Okay.
times 2.1. It's about 3,900, and it was rounded up to 4,000.
So the average person in Alexandria, the average 2.1 people are not very careful with their water. So what my basic thing is, why punish the people who are careful with their water? Because the average person is using more water than those of us who try to be conservative.
Yeah, I think we acknowledge that the system, it is not a perfect system, right? The system was set up to attempt to get fairness to most customers, during that use of water outside of their winter average for irrigation and things like that. So I think I know the board's revisited this a few times over the past few years, and we've had discussions around it. But it's still, remained as it was in 2012. We do, for the board, revisit this every time we do a rate setting process. We go back and look at the winter average. So that's on a biannual basis. So that's something we can also consider in our next round of rate setting process, if this is something the board would wish to revisit based on the feedback we're getting this evening.
Mr. Rockwood, we appreciate your testimony. We really do. As Mr. Carl said, we look at the rates every year. We set it 2 years ahead, but we really reconsider it every year. Keeping in mind, this is a public utility and our only source of income is our rates. So we have to do our calculations around that single source of income. But at the same time, we also want to have a rate structure that promotes conservation, right? So your input is very valuable. Now we have your case in writing. I think you mailed something into us. If you want to expand on that at any point in the future and send more, we'd appreciate it because I think we will factor this in when we set the rates. We, as you know, have a new customer care system, and I think we have a little more data on water usage. So I think your concerns can be analyzed maybe more deeply than we've looked at in the past. So.
Can I ask one other
Sure,
question? That is
absolutely.
not really y'all's system, but the Virginia American Water, why do they calculate everything as if we don't really pay in 1,000 gallon increments? They've got it in like 700 gallon increments. It doesn't
It's
matter.
not in K-gals?
They don't do it in 1,000 gallons. If you look at their like their bills, it's like 700, 1,400. So it's harder to read than it should be.
It's probably they're using some cubic measure and converting it to gallons. I would assume that. I'd have to go back and do the math, but I would assume there's Matt, like you. That's my guess. But I've seen cubic measures used before, not gallons. I suspect it's a cubic measure they're converting.
I figured it was a holdover from the long time past, back from before AlexRenew existed, and we only got one bill every 3 months, and it was less money than it is now every month for both the sewage and the water, but things changed. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate the input that you all have told me, and I feel a little better that at least I tried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more note for the board on this, just for information, when the winter average was set, it was quarterly bills, so we were looking at that quarter. We're now monthly billing, so gives the ability to go back and also look at, a peak over that month as opposed to an average.
I think it would make sense given, you said it was 2012 when they determined 60, that 60 per day was the right number. That in effect with the increased number of low flow devices, either at new units or as people rehab their old bathrooms and put low flow devices in. I think it's worth seeing whether that's a valid number or not. Should also point out that one of the advantages of picking a number that's average is that regardless of how many gallons go through the plant, most of our costs are fixed. So, that's the irony of utility rate setting when you are, whether it's electricity or water, right? In a sense is that when you conserve, you actually have that big fixed overhead, but you still have to amortize over those customers. So this is one way of basically saying everybody's going to pay a certain minimum amount because our debt service, our operations, our capital investments are going to be the same, whether you use 60 gallons or 50 gallons.
Perhaps we could look at what the impact to revenues would be if we change the number.
Mr. Rockworth, you've initiated a lot of good discussions. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving right along to item 4, the consent agenda. We have 2 items in the consent agenda, minutes from our October meeting, plus an amendment to a computerized maintenance management system, which is very necessary thing. And those are together in the consent agenda. I'll give you a chance to look at both of those, and I will entertain a motion to approve.
On the minutes, I just had one clarification, maybe where it talks about the innovation pump district station. says it's designed to accommodate 2 MGD and will operate once per week. I think we just put the word initially operate once per week. So that anybody reading that will understand, it's just where we start, not what it's going to be for its life.
Any questions on either topic, the CMMS or the minutes? Motion,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Right.
Any- Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay. Moving right on to item 5 on the agenda, community meetings. I'll give a quick report from the Rosemont Civic Association. Naturally, all civic associations are very focused on the housing for zoning, housing for all initiative. But in Rosemont, we did pass along a survey that the city is doing for flooding in the Hoofs Run watershed. And it was a survey designed by the city to capture information on the impact of stormwater flooding, which naturally also involves sanitary sewer in Rosemont. And so our neighbors in Rosemont are completing that survey. It's going to the city. So an interest in stormwater and sanitary sewers, but right now probably second in place to the housing. Anything from other civic associations? I think the-
I have reached out a couple times to mine. So
Okay, you have North
Old
Old Town.
North Town. Oh, North Old Town.
North Old
Yeah.
Town. And, okay, I'll,
So if there's another email address or phone number that might be more.
Eric Olson, we could connect you with Eric.
Okay.
Mr.
Oh,
Olson.
yeah, I work with Eric if you want me to.
again, I encourage all board members to reach out to your civic association, keep your ears open to what's going on in neighborhoods.
I'm scheduled to attend mine next week, the Federation of Civic Associations. The day after the zoning vote, so that should be a fun one.
I don't think sewers and stormwater will be high on the agenda.
No, but I reached out and was asked to just join and introduce myself as the new liaison.
Good, good, great. Okay, we'll have a much bigger update from the Finance and Audit Committee. Mr. Jingus.
Committee met on November 13th. We were fortunate to have all the board members in attendance. We were able to have a thorough discussion. One we'll talk about later on in the agenda. Reviewing and accepting our annual financial report. So we're going to discussion of that at this point. And we also talked about payment assistance programs, where we are in a sense, the various options in front of us, and basically staff gave us an update on the research they've done and what their plans, and we gave green lights in proceeding. We're looking at options they had in the case of payment, kind of the emergency payment assistance, kind of not just looking at options, but figuring out how we actually get to implementation.
So we'll hold the discussion on the financial report till item 7, okay? Does that cover?
Yes. So,
Governance Committee, Mr. Beal.
Ms. Hammer and I, over the past month, developed several revisions to the environmental policy or environmental justice policy statement. I understand you and Mr. Carl met today. If you'd want to update on that, please, Ms. Hammer.
Sure. Yeah, Mr. Carl and Ms. Waters and I met earlier this evening to just discuss one revision that they had suggested to the language that that we had developed. So we reached a good agreement on how it should read, and I'm gonna take a look at, well, Mr. Beal, you and I can both take a look at the revised language, and then we'll circulate it to everyone hopefully for approval at next month's board meeting.
Good.
I think it looks really great.
That's good to hear. And it's an important policy too. Good. I see there's a topic here on the board retreat. Is that for you?
Yeah, so there's a packet, little agenda that we had distributed as a draft this evening for the board. It's a separate handout.
Yeah.
You go to the. There you go. It's not fancy yet, but the intent is we're putting together a run of show for the weekend for the board retreat. And you've seen this in the past, but we're starting to flesh out more details with day one. You can see we outlined the goals of the retreat, the purpose, and then day one is the team building event at Building Momentum, starting at noon with lunch, going through the Clifton strengths, and then doing ended up slating us for an electrical vehicles challenge where we build and solder vehicles and then race them, well, the board members will. And then the second day of that will be here at AlexRenew and focused on us developing a vision for 2060.
26. I remember putting together the 2040 vision, and that seemed like 100 years in the future. Now 2060. Be 105.
So in
Everybody else
the,
considerably younger. Yeah. Right. That's Mr. Carl, this looks wonderful. This really looks like a very thoughtful organization of a great weekend.
Carl, could you email me that document, please?
yes,
Thank you.
Right. Any comments on this? I think everybody's looking forward to it.
Good.
Fantastic.
Anybody has any ideas about read ahead materials they think might be useful? Maybe some way just pass them on to John.
Yep.
You can send them out. So, if you know a particular source that has covered the topic that you think you ought to cover, or directly relates to environmental vision 2060, it'd be nice to have something ahead of time. And I'm slow. It takes me a little while to go, aha, but if I read ahead of time, it's a little more productive.
Mr. Jakes, let me build on that idea because I was actually thinking along the same lines. We're blessed with a board with very diverse and deep talents. What if every board member selected one item they want to share and ask their fellow board members to read? Okay, not War and Peace, not a 1,000-page volume, but maybe an article or a short, perhaps, book that you think your board members would benefit from. I actually have one I've been thinking about sharing with everybody. So again, this is to help us formulate a 2060 vision. So think about it. It's not a hard assignment, but just if you really want to get your fellow board members thinking, identify an article or something for your fellow board members to read before the meeting. Let's keep a limit to 50 pages, perhaps. But if it's a great book, we can go bigger. And by Christmas time, right, or certainly by the middle of December, to give people a chance to read. Good. Thank you. Good idea, Mr. Jones. No unfinished business. So let's move right into the review of the annual comprehensive financial report. Back to Mr. Jenks.
As is our the rhythm that we're on in the calendar. got to the end. Our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. And after June 30th, like many governmental agencies, we got pretty complicated set of books. And so between that, getting those ready for the auditors, having the auditors come in, and then producing which we got in front of us, a 100-page plus annual comprehensive financial report takes time. And it's just kind of standard with, I think, most local governments are partially driven by state law. They all are finished about this time and present them to their governing bodies. And then it goes off to state auditor and public accounts by early December is the state requirement. So it's we keep in. And I've been on boards in places where sometimes it's a year later you end up like, oh, your audit. Like that's not a good practice. So getting it done. In this case, we had the draft in October, so that's 4 months after 4 months plus a little bit after the end of the fiscal year. So that's really good timing on something that's just complicated. So with that, I can turn it over to the staff to kind of take it from here to explain what we've got. The auditors told us.
Yeah, I mean, keeping in mind that the entire board was at the finance and accounting.
Correct. Pretty much what was presented during the finance and accounting committee with the chair, Mr. Jinks, briefing us on just an overview of the total package. It's been submitted back to the auditors. The auditors has pretty much officially approved it, and that's our final document for the year. We are in the process of sending hard copies out to certain governing bodies and certain individuals by requirements who needs to have it. Board members would have hard copies, hopefully by the next board meeting as well. It will be posted on our website, maybe already on our website by now, because it's a final document. That's the story behind it at this point.
And the most important part of the story is it's a clean, unqualified opinion.
Yes, sir. Clean on modified opinion. That's true. That's the goal.
We congratulate our CFO and CEO. This is the first they're new to these particular roles. So this was a big learning curve to get all the little nuances of an organization that's over half century old and get it all to the penny exactly where it should be. So congratulations. In order, and the auditors were, it was a clean opinion, and a few things they came up with were fairly minor, and staff basically has said will be taken care of by the time we get to the end of December. So good shape.
Any other discussion on this topic? Well done by the committee and certainly by the CFO staff.
Do we not have to take a motion to accept it?
I think we should. Motion to accept it. It should come from the committee itself.
So moved.
Your second.
Second.
Second. Let's give that to Mr. Beal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We will then distribute it, get it on the website. We have a distribution list. We'll send it out to as well. The city's part of that. Our major funding through WIFIA, the state will receive copies of that as well as the banks. So we'll have that sent out hopefully first thing tomorrow morning to our distribution list, and I'll be up on the web as well.
Great. Now, customer service migration. Mr. Robertson, I was on the portal today and it was wonderful.
That's what we like to hear.
Took me a while to get in the first time, but the second time was a breeze.
That's good.
Mr. Robertson, before you begin, just wanted to provide, we've been sharing almost daily updates. Some days they feel like, a little too similar to the day before. So we haven't been sharing them, but sharing daily updates since the new customer care portal went live on November 1st. What we wanted to talk about tonight is the status, what we're seeing with the new launch, some of the successes we've heard already, some of the challenges we've experienced, and then what to expect in the next few months as we sign up the rest of our customers on the new portal. So Mr. Robertson's going to give us an overview. It's really meant for discussion and you all to ask questions as well about the launch.
I'm sure you all are not sick of hearing about customer service. So just to sort of recap, what has happened so far, the call center services started November 1st. If you'll recall, we thought it would take anywhere from 3 to 6 days to migrate data. It was fortunately quicker than we expected even, and we were able to launch the morning of November 3rd. So that was pretty good timing. We have also started to release bills, which is the other very key component of this whole migration. So all steps in a positive direction. Typically, when you go through a migration like this, the billing cycles are delayed somewhat the first cycle anyway. So that's a challenge we have to kind of communicate out and then work through it. Service team, make sure that we walk through the sort of challenges. Also, this is sort of a recap here, but this is what we did before launch. We had multiple bill inserts, an email or two, I think it was 2 emails actually, and we had a social media campaign. Post-launch, we also sent out an insert sort of reminding customers to go create an account. We sent out an email to remind customers to register and sort of walk them through those steps. And it had a 70% open rate for all of our customers. So that's tremendous. We've also leveraged some of the notifications you'll see this are on AlexRenew.com, as well as the portal to sort of update customers with any challenges we've had along the way. So that's been pretty helpful. This is sort of call center metrics in a nutshell. I'll point out a few things here while you're reading it, but in this column here, you'll see this is the initial launch. It was only for the first 3 days. And if you'll recall, you couldn't create an account in that time period. We were sort of in a holding pattern. So the numbers are a little bit lower than they would be at like the launch of the migration. This week right here is really where we sent out that email that said register, and we started getting a lot of phone calls regarding registration issues or anything with that. As you can see, sort of in week 3, we had sort of a slower week here where things started to taper off a little bit. That's a pretty good sign for the campaign as a whole. If you look row by row here, you can see this is the total answered calls per week. So we're down quite a bit from week 2 to 3. Abandoned calls improved, handling times decreased. When we look at average wait time, you can see we're down to about 2 minutes, which is pretty good by industry standards, especially for a launch like this. And then the average or the longest wait time is in parentheses. That does include a callback feature now. So if you're on the phone, basically, you don't feel like waiting in line, you can click callback. So it kind of extends your longest wait time there. And then you can see here too, chat has been an extremely popular feature. So that's an awesome win for the migration.
Is the handling time the time that the customer is actually talking to a person? So it looks like the times have got like sort of peaked that second week.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it just confusion around how to set things up? That's what it was.
Mostly registration questions, which can take longer, or navigating the portal can take longer than some of the other questions. And I listed out some of the major reasons here for incoming calls. I would point out too, as you're looking at this, when you look at data like this, sometimes it's easy to go, oh, this is how many calls we're getting related to the migration, but there's sort of a baseline there where we're getting phone calls about how to pay your bill or what amount owed. I mean, people just call and ask how much they owe each month. So in terms of what our average call per week is before the launch, it's probably in the 35 to 45 call range. So when you're talking, we peaked at 58, that's not that much higher than our normal call volume. Just sort of helpful to know, I think. And then if you look at the first 3 here, these are pretty typical calls we would get anyways. The next 3 are sort of the ones that were caused by the migrations. That was, assistance with registering, or we did have some email providers that had issues with just deliverability in general, and we were able to work through a few of them with our IT folks and customer care team. A lot of customers just called to verify their auto pay went through, which for most customers it did. And then the other one was to inquire about either a delay in billing or check processing, which I'll touch on a little bit here on the next.
Could you go back to that screen? The top row, answered calls total and peak is the peak day.
Oh, so yeah, this is the highest number per day, like the highest number that week. So the max calls we got, this is the highest we've had the whole time, it's 97 calls
In one day. So these are frankly rather small numbers.
Yeah,
They're really manageable.
they are extremely manageable.
And the other thing that's very, very encouraging, by the way, is the number of chats is twice the number of calls.
Yes, and that has also helped keep call volume down. Sure.
And I use the chat and I thought it was wonderful.
It's an awesome feature, probably one of the best features we have.
Yeah, I handle all my extensive email problems because of my old email system with the chat. And it was really very helpful. I was surprised at how helpful it was. Yeah.
Do you have any data on the types of things people are electing to use the chat function for? I'm assuming it's the more simple stuff. I can't imagine it's like.
I'm sure I could check you could check the call logs, but it's not included necessarily.
No. I just wondered if we knew offhand, like if people were thinking, oh, just verifying my auto pay is a yes or no answer. Maybe I'll
Versus the
chat.
phone.
Exactly.
They sort of include, like I asked for the biggest complaints, but I didn't ask them. So it's sort of like all anecdotal. And
Sure.
I know that would be interesting to see. So we've touched on a few of these. Here are some of the successes of the new migration. The chat feature obviously is a customer favorite. So AlexRenew has over 13,000 auto pay customers, which honestly makes this transition a lot easier. They did not have to do anything for the most part, with a few exceptions. So most of those customers transitioned seamlessly, the vast majority of them. So that has also helped keep costs down. They can create an account, but it's not necessary. Another thing I think I already pointed out, but our outbound registration email sort of started us off, the great start at the call center. Like they were able to manage all of the calls. We were able to register a huge number of customers in a short period of time. Well, relatively huge. But we have 3,370 people registered. That was as of yesterday. That sounds like a small number, but we only typically get 4,000 to 5,000 people who visit AlexRenew.com per month. So we're getting close to our normal number of visitors now. Challenges. So the authentication email did get caught in a few spam filters.
My mom had that problem.
So we had some solutions for that. The IT team reached out to AWS, who's Amazon Web Services, sort of came up with a solution to help with some of those issues. It was only affecting, it was a relatively small number of customers, but during a migration like this, any relatively small number still impact your call volume. Check processing was delayed till I believe the 12th. So there was, basically we had to cache a large number or process a large number of checks in one day. We did not receive a lot of complaints about that though. When knock on wood did not cause a lot of phone traffic. We did notify customers that check processing may be delayed and through a number of communications, including AlexRenew portal and bill messaging. Bill processing is also delayed. That is sort of a planned item in the project. This was delayed maybe a little bit more than we anticipated based on our start date, but we have almost caught up with billing cycles now. So that's one of those things that could cause call volume to continue to kind of fluctuate as people receive their first bill and have questions. When they receive bills, that also sometimes generates traffic to create an account or call. So it's sort of loosely tied to that. Auto pay issues is another thing that might, I'll say, roll over into December, because if people had any issues with their auto pay and it either did not process or processed in a way that they did not like, we would likely hear about that in December. The latest report from our migration team was that there were a very small number of accounts impacted by one auto pay issue that basically in the old system, they were allowed to set a max threshold for an auto pay withdrawal. And if it reached that, then it would not withdraw. We don't have that feature. It only was 150 customers roughly. So we reached out to all of those customers. Anybody that does not like go in and create an account, we'll just reach out to via phone call if they don't access it via email.
Your bill processing delay, so
Yep.
on the first one, the first page, one of the first slides said that bill release began on 15th.
Yep.
Does it normally go out on the first? Like, is it a 2-week delay or is it a rolling calendar?
Usually, so billing cycles usually fluctuate depending on when the weekend falls, right? So it could be, usually it's the 3rd of the month, depending on how close they can get. And then it would go throughout the entire month. So you're kind of playing catch up once you start processing them basically.
So are we thinking that the delay was approximately 2 weeks for billing?
Probably
10
10 to
days?
12 days, and only for the first cycle or two. Fortunately too, for us, the first cycle is usually customers, it's their last bill. So that sort of buys you a little time. So
Sure.
most customers might get a bill 10 to 11 days late, which could still cause them to call in. It's sort of an unavoidable
Sure.
thing in one of these migrations. Limit it as much as possible. So this is sort of what to expect, and I kind of touched on some of these things already, but call volume will likely fluctuate as people receive their bills, in some cases later than usual. The issues that affect auto pay customers likely roll into December, and that could generate a few calls. In our case, it's pretty limited crowd, so I don't think it will cost too much. And then typically what you see in a customer care migration is that after about 2 months, sort of call volume levels out, and that's your new reality. Based off of what I'm seeing, I'm guessing we're going to see probably a similar amount of calls, but also a lot of chats. So that might be an interesting thing to keep track of post December. All I had for you. Any other questions?
Your email open rate was enormously high.
Yes.
Does AlexRenew normally have that level of email opening for things you send out, or do you attribute that to the really robust outreach you did?
So outbound emails at the level we've been doing are relatively new, but we've seen consistently 60 to 70% open rates.
So it's
It's
just,
just pretty awesome.
Yeah.
When you're talking in terms of just utility emails in general, they usually get higher open rates. I've worked at other utilities and they were really high there, and it was typically like 30 to 45% high. So 60s,
yeah.
the highest I've ever seen. Pretty awesome. It's an awesome tool to have in your arsenal. Some of the specialized emails, like the auto pay one, saw 74% open rate. Which is crazy.
Impressive.
So, Mr. Robertson, are we halfway through the battle or a little bit more?
I would say a little bit more. I mean, I think the first wave is the biggest, and then you're going to see like the series.
It's long tail.
And you're going to get and right now customers are getting their bills, so you're going to see an uptick probably. And then that's going to level out, and you might have a few auto pay little wave later on, if I was guessing. But this is all things that don't fail.
Very good news. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
That's great.
Good news. Okay, moving right along at a very rapid pace here. Outcomes report, tab 5.
I did want to note that in your green folder, we also included a final draft of the 2023 annual report. We did receive comments from the board to go through and note the photos throughout the report. We've done that. Mr. Jenks also dropped off some edits throughout the report. And I would like to note that the last page, we did modify the finance page to make it more like a popular annual financial report to give the highlights of our audit and budget for FY 2023. So you'll see that the funding our mission page on the last 2 pages reads similar to the beginning of the management letter in the ACRA. So I think that's new. Getting feedback on that last page would be appreciated, and any other edits throughout the document. Our goal is to get this, printed between the holiday and have it available for our customers, starting in the new year.
You have a picture of the finance.
We did.
That looks good. Oh, I thought it was important because we took in more than we spent. People are gonna go, wait a second. And to have expenses and revenues total by when basically if you look down to the very bottom of the expense line, it says, the 6.1 million we had it's a resource, and it says this is, we got it, we reserved it. So people go, oh, they took it 174 million. What did they do with it?
Yep.
So we explain every time.
Looks good.
That is good. Looking document. So you're ready to go to press.
If you go through it and look at it one more time, the last page is completely new. The language mirrors the management letter. So if you have any comments between now and, next week, just let us know. And if not, we'll go to print late next week. Maybe by Wednesday next week, if there's anything else that jumps out at you all, let us know and we'll incorporate it.
Really great photographs.
Yeah. Very well composed.
I like how much of the staff you have.
All right, the monthly report. Tab 5, section 1.2, update on our capital improvement program. As we noted in October, we took over temporary operations for the Innovation District pumping station. We are still under a temporary agreement. We're working with legal to clear some of the deeds on the property through an estoppel. That process is in the works. We expect that to be complete by early next month, and then we will transfer the deed and take over ownership of the pumping station. Right now, we just have a temporary agreement with JVGS to operate it. Last report, I noted that we received statements of qualifications for construction manager at risk for our solids upgrade programs. This is a $30 million capital improvement program for our solids process. Shortlisted respondents, it says here, were notified in November. They were posted to the website today. We had a submission of 5 teams. We shortlisted those 5 to 3 to be invited to the request for proposals phase. The 3 teams that were shortlisted were Element Shooty, PC Construction, and Kokosing. Kokosing may sound familiar because they're this major sub on the River End project. In addition to that, we issued another request for qualifications for construction manager at risk for our largest program in our portfolio at the moment, called the Preliminary Primary Systems Upgrade Project. those proposals were due today. We received proposals today with the anticipated short list coming after the holiday. In addition to that, we need to procure a designer for that project as well. And an RFP hit the streets a few weeks ago for that project as well for a designer. We are using our current in-house basic ordering agreement to go from 0 to 30%, and then we'll bring a designer on to design it from 30 to 100% participate in the CMAR process with the selected CMAR. We're continuing to update table 1, 2. As you can see, we continue to update our job order contract task orders. You can see the amount of work happening at the plant. These are either estimates that we've received from the contractor or final numbers. We can start to denote them as we finalize the numbers. But you can see the list of projects that we have ongoing, both at the plant and at our pumping station, 2 pumping stations. For AlexRenew, we included the dashboard. Before we get into the details of the dashboard, I do want to let the board know that Senator Eben, as well as Delegate Bulova, introduced legislation into the General Assembly to support extending the deadline from July 1st, 2025 to July 1st, 2026. That was done today. Pre-filing began, today's still Tuesday. Pre-filing began yesterday. So that was all done today. So good news that we will have legislation going into the upcoming legislative session. Delegate Bennett Hufford is going to support us as a chief co-patron on the House side.
That session starts early January.
Yes. There's an Alexandria delegation event next Wednesday at City Hall that we're going to attend as well, just to be there.
The open house, town hall, I'm sorry.
Correct.
Given that we know where we are, and anybody in regards to the time deadline and the reason that we're 90 days behind schedule, we know that. The key politicians know that. Some of the public knows it, but not a lot of the public. And knowing how things quickly spin out of control, having a bill that says here's a year, when we've said that's to protect us so we don't have to go back again. So I had a question, what are our plans in the sense of educating the public, the media, in regards to what our request is, what the strategy is, and where we are? It's phenomenal that we're only 90 days behind, and the reasons all relate to things that happen across the Atlantic Ocean for the most part. So it's a good story, but it can quickly, as too often seen, spin in a bad direction if somebody gets it wrong, and then the community has some kind of feeling, oh, they're a year behind, versus no, we're not, but we don't want to go back a second time if something unexpected happens beyond our control.
So I think we've been talking about this, extending this extension since April of this year. And, one of our biggest allies is our stakeholder advisory group. So we brought them along, provided them with talking points, from day one with respect to the delay. Same goes for the council board work group, council and city. I think we also, as part of our getting out to our various civic association meetings, I will recirculate talking points to the board. If you're asked a question about this, why is it a full year? It's because there's potential for delay with procurement of equipment. I think we talked to our stakeholder group last week, about, transformers being 150 weeks late. Things like that are going to come up that we're going to experience. We just don't want to have to go back a second time. So I think that is one piece. We also have talked about putting some talking points, FAQs on the web, and generating a flyer to support the upcoming legislation that's being introduced. As far as media goes, our primary media contacts to date have been the Post, and they reach out directly to to me typically, so we've been educating them about the delay before the article went out a few months ago. So we can make sure that they're aware of why they ask for an additional year. But we've already started putting some of that groundwork in place through Teo Armas with the Post too, when he was out doing interviews for his article a few months ago.
Would it be wise to plant an article or something in Alexandria Times or GasPack or AlexNow, Patch, one of the smaller publications that's very focused on Alexandria? Because
Maybe not the Times.
maybe not the Times.
Maybe Alex Now would be a good one. You know, we've done something we've had successful in the past was doing opinion pieces as well.
I volunteer if you need
We've
one.
done those before, you know, in the local papers, the Gazette packet's a good one.
Oh, the Times takes opinion pieces.
Yeah.
Really.
Because I think the next big deadline, as I understand it, or big milestone, as I understand it, will be completing the tunnel when the TBM reaches RT Robinson Terminal North. That's January-ish, right?
Saying February.
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 I don't think we could wait till then.
So session, we would want to have, you know, so that these articles, if we're going to place articles, let's work on getting them placed before the session starts. Let's work in December to get them placed. You know, flyers are no problem. We have talking points already with flyers developed. You know, that piece we can certainly support and recirculate talking points, you know, to the board and council again to just get it at top of agenda.
Have you talked at all with Potomac Riverkeeper?
Yes, we got all that.
So they're aware.
Sent a letter of support to the
Okay.
board last week of the flyer.
Yep.
We got that letter last week. We're also expecting a similar letter from Chesapeake Bay Foundation.
Probably good to reference those letters in whatever media information we put out, whatever we write. So, because that's the first thing a reporter is going to do. And the Post reporter may have changed. They've been doing some reorganization and downsizing, and there was a local article had a new name on it
I saw that.
last week, and I don't know whether.
Teo Armas.
Still Alexandria.
He's still covering Alexandria. He was at like
I
the
saw,
hearing on Saturday.
I saw the same name come up and it wasn't Tay on it. I was concerned.
But just let us know if there's anything the board can do to get the word out. Because I think the 90 days is an incredible accomplishment. Unfortunately, somebody who wants to spend it the wrong way would focus on the year.
Do we know how the other two municipalities and state that also had similar deadlines are doing? Because they must be experiencing the same delays we are. I'm just wondering if there's any value in that sort of collaboration.
Richmond hasn't
Richmond has no deadline.
Richmond hasn't started construction. Their long-term control plan is due this summer. So they're back.
So we're not all. on
We're the
same-
only jurisdiction that has a strict deadline, correct?
And Richmond.
But
Richmond's
they're not the same deadlines.
Richmond's deadline was set well after Alexandria's. Richmond's deadline was set to have a long-term control plan due next summer, much like ours was due in 2018. They haven't gotten to that point yet where they've even submitted a long-term control plan. So they're 5 years behind where we are currently. So they're doing an interim plan with some inflatable dams and things like that, but nothing to the point of where it's, you know, building and bringing in these mechanical and electrical equipment. Lynchburg is building a tunnel, but they're on an ARPA deadline of December 31st, 2026. So that's a completely separate deadline. They're trying to get the ARPA money spent by that date. They're building a 10-foot rock tunnel. I don't think they started constructing yet.
And, excuse me, Mr. Hill may have been making this point that it seems like completing the tunnel and bringing Hazel out at Pendleton Street is a good timing for an article that celebrates how far we've come and talks about the deadlines and the reason for it, but you combine those two pieces of news together in one article. Might be a good way to approach this.
That's not until February though, right?
Yeah, I think that may be a little late. That might be a little late. Yeah, I think that, getting things out in December, I think it's gets ahead of the rumor mill of
Okay.
the bad spins this could get.
But one thing we can say for sure is Hazel is probably right in front of King Street now.
Yeah.
And you can still report on how far it's come. It's almost, it'll be almost there,
Yeah.
It's still.
Just to, it will, doing it in December will give us the ability to, we do have a planned event for the completion of the waterfront. I hate talking about it, but the idea is, Hazel is currently at Barca. From the Terminal South, right?
Hazel's at happy hour.
Another reason to go to Park.
We had a plan to do it as a team and it ended up being on Thanksgiving, so, we missed our event. We're 8,000 feet in. The current schedule is sometime in February, where she'll be topside. So what we're planning as an event right now is we never got the greater community out to be able to see the tunnel boring machine, so we're planning an open house. What we want to do is pull Hazel out of the ground at outfall 1, put a front shield, mid shield, tail shield on the ground like she was here at the plant, fence off the site, have it, graded to be able to walk onto the site on a Saturday, get a photo op with the TBM, take a peek in the shaft, and then walk back off site at your leisure. It's not going to be a planned event with a bunch of speeches. It's an open house. Come check out the TBM because she's getting loaded up and taken away. It's one last chance to see the piece of infrastructure that built the waterfront tunnel. So we'll have our typical signage and boards out there. We'll have the photo op. That is likely going to happen sometime in February. We won't know until the shaft's dewatered and we excavate out all the flow fill and bring her up. But the idea there, really would be to, all Alexandrians, this would be open for kids as well, because it would be fenced off the site to take a look at Hazel before she's moved off site. That's February. That's our idea of that event. We've discussed that with the stakeholder group. They really liked it. We probably have some sort of little giveaways as well as part of it.
I think one thing maybe to note is we haven't outwardly communicated the deadline for the last year or so because we knew it might shift. So we're not necessarily backtracking on a huge amount of messaging that's gone out the last year. It's kind of in our favor.
No, everybody asks me, when will it be done?
That's our number one question, honestly. So that's sort of a checkbox in.
They don't know about the deadline, so, yeah. Why don't you think about how anything the board can do to help with that? And be on the alert that it could be spun the wrong way, right? You want to get out in front of it, so. But you know your business. And, good. I do have a question on the financials, though. Getting back to the outcome report. Delinquencies continue to be what they are. Any sense of when we'll be able to take some actions to maybe bend that curve a bit?
So our plan currently, getting ahead of ourselves a little too quickly here. We had a call with Dollar Energy yesterday about standing up our hardship support program, which is currently called the Water Fund, but according to Dollar Energy, they definitely like to help us rebrand that, which I am supportive of. We will circulate some ideas to the board for consideration once we come up with a short list. The current idea is we'd like to have our hardship program stood up by February 1st.
Okay.
That gives our customer service transition time to run its course. We stand up the hardship program and then start looking at disconnections in March and in the spring, March-April timeframe. That gives us the ability to broadcast the hardship program. And that also gives us the ability to say, if you're at threat for disconnection and you qualify with these criteria, which we're working on setting right now, then, we'll work with you to give you hardship assistance from our bucket of funds. We are going to be coming to the board in December with a memo, requesting an initial fund to stand up the administrative side of the program. It's 13 and change, 13,000 and change.
We'll wait for that memo.
So the idea is timing wise, finish customer support through the holiday, get through the holiday. February 1st, we have a new hardship program. Start disconnects in the spring in March, April, and then tie that back to the hardship saying, hey, if you're at threat for being shut off, we have this assistance. We have this bucket of money for you.
That's a very humane way to do it. I appreciate that. Yeah. It makes sense. Makes sense.
That's the current thinking.
Yeah.
I think in
It's good thinking.
December, we'll have a little bit more detail around what we think would be qualification criteria for the hardship program. And we had some discussions with the city. We want to see what they're using for qualifiers. SNAP is one of them that the city uses. Dollar Energy likes the 150% below federal poverty level. That's something we're going to be fleshing out over the next month, get feedback from the board. In December, that gives us plenty of time to stand up the program by February.
Good. That's also a very aggressive schedule too. I mean, we just started talking about this program a few months ago. Here we are standing it up in a couple, on top of everything else. Any other questions on outcomes? Okay, I would like to go into closed session for a very small discussion with just the board on the personnel issue, but before we do, as we approach Thanksgiving, it's time to give thanks. And I am very thankful for this organization. Mr. Carl, it's sometimes I think you've been here for 10 years and you've only been here for
Not 10 months.
10 months.
Not 10 months.
The increase in gray, I think.
And you have taken a team that was already top notch and really taken it to a whole nother level and added some real strength to the bench as well. So thank you for that. Thank the whole team. Continued accomplishments on AlexRenew and a lot of these new programs we're talking about. So thankful for that. I hope you can enjoy a little bit of a holiday. Thank you. Okay. Brought up to tears. Mr. Beal, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Still here. Okay, I need to make a motion pursuant to section 2.2, 3711 of the Code of Virginia to move the board to enter into a closed meeting for the very limited purpose of a discussion of the personnel nature. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Colorelli. All in favor? Aye. And those of you in the room, please, Ram and others, take a cookie or something. There's a mountain of food. Really good. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Yeah, we're just doing it.
Okay.
Bar. It's your first blue session.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Yes, I do.
Back in the department, we're
Yes, yes.
On the Blue Plains Regional Committee.
Yeah, he's on too many committees, actually. And when he retires, which is soon, we're gonna be in trouble. Have a good night.
Thank you. Make sure we should get together tomorrow morning. Go through that, please.
I just like.
Are you coming in, Mark? Okay.
Yeah.
Meeting is now be reopened. We're going to do it in this conference room. There is nobody in here.
We announced to the. Yeah.
Shout loud enough.
Thank you. Becky, are you going anywhere? Or are you staying home?
I am sticking around.
Great.
Yes,
My days of traveling with kids to see the in-laws, I don't want to spend any more time on 95 going north
Yeah,
to
no
upstate New York or south to Georgia. I'm done with that.
Hey, Justin, I was in a meeting last week where I met somebody from WSSC who used to work here. Brian Mosey? You know him? Anyway, they are doing the same things we are in terms of the solids. And they're
They invested in Canada.
yes. But they're also
Did we close the meeting?
yes.
Bad idea.